Hi everybody, thank you for participating. I know it's a lot to take time out of your day, but we appreciate it. My name is Jillian, this is Noah. We're going to be asking you some questions today. So the purpose of this is to just to set some expectations. We're going to just ask you some questions about extracurriculars, how involved you are or are not in them, some things to go over. There's no right or wrong answers, just opinions that we're interested in. We really want to hear everybody speak. We want everybody to be heard. So if you have something to say, please speak up and listen to the other participants. And we'd like to hear your reactions to what they have to say, whether you're in agreement or not. As long as we're all friendly about it. We are being recorded and filmed so that we could use it in our class and for a later date. We are aware that some of you do have to leave either promptly at 5 or a little bit before. That's totally fine. You can just quietly get up and go. That's no problem. A little bit of context about what we're going to be doing or what we're going to be asking about. We're going to explore what factors make it more likely for students at Stevens to join extracurriculars. To go over the definitions of what we mean by certain things. We're defining an extracurricular as a campus-run sponsored club, sport, fraternity, sorority, or other group. What we're not including is varsity sports. By join, we mean participate in a group and attend regularly to group meetings. And you're presently still attending meetings. And student is an undergraduate, full-time student at Stevens Institute of Technology. So I'm going to turn it over to Noah, and he's going to ask you some questions.
Okay. Hi, everybody. So I think if we could just start off, everybody go around, just say their name, major, and year. That would be really good. So I'm Noah. I'm a 4 out of 4 music technology major.
Paul, 404 civil engineer.
Matt, 404 biz tech.
Kyla, 4 out of 4 art tech.
Nina, 2 out of 4 beauty.
Ron, 4 out of 5 comp sci.
Calvin, 4 out of 4 music tech.
Jake, 5 out of 5 EM.
Gillian, 3 out of 4 art tech.
I'm Abigail. I'm a 4 out of 5 chemical engineering major.
I'm Zoe. I'm a freshman computer engineer.
Derek, a senior electrical engineer.
Kira, 4 out of 4 music tech.
Great. So if everybody can raise their hand if they've ever participated in an extracurricular activity at Stevens. Looks like pretty much everybody. So I guess next question is, how involved would you say you were in that extracurricular activity? Were you a member? Were you like highly involved? Were you part of the e-board or some other kind of level of activity? You can just answer at will if you would like. Also, what was that activity?
I'm in off center. I go to pretty much every meeting, and then all through this week, I'll be going to meetings for the short form show, and I'll be observing the long form show practices.
I'm in the West Indian Club. I'm on e-board.
Okay.
I've been on SDS e-board for 2 terms, and I also was on minor board for EPL.
Anyone else anything to add?
I was on the SUMAC e-board. I'm also on the EC for my fraternity. But you knew that.
Anyone else have anything to add?
Stevens Newman Association, not part of e-board, but more the auxiliary kind of e-board, planning stuff.
And for those who raised their hand, which was everybody, what would you say were the main factors that made you want to join this organization to begin with?
Something I was interested in.
What was the organization?
I was a member of the crew team and the bowling team. I did crew in high school, and I never had a bowling team in high school, so that was kind of interesting that I could bowl for a team.
So you'd say that a big part of it for you was that it was just like a new thing for you, and it's just
something that I was interested in.
Seemed interested.
Yeah.
And do any of you how do you balance your time between schoolwork and extracurricular clubs or organizations? If anyone has anything to say?
Yeah, I have a planner. I'm pretty busy, so I usually write everything that I need to do down throughout the day, and then like I'll just usually check it off and keep myself pretty organized.
Activities I'm part of, I keep kind of relegated to the weekends so it doesn't interfere with classes.
Great. Anyone else?
I just try to put stuff on my calendar and prioritize getting stuff done so I can make it to whatever I need to.
So it seems to be a theme of everybody kind of having to utilize time management with their activities. Has anyone ever had a situation where maybe like they felt like they didn't have time to do a particular activity because they were focusing on their schoolwork or like something of that nature?
I ended up quitting the hockey team because I just didn't have time to go to 2 practices a week and also spend the whole week having at games.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I had to go inactive in APO last semester because I got too busy.
Okay. So prior to coming to Stevens, did any of you participate in any extracurricular activities? Like in high school? Or...
Should we raise our hands like we did?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just raise your hand. Okay. If we could just go around and say what each of those activities was.
Mainly kind of political organizations.
DECO, which is a business club in spring track.
I was in Mollywood. I was in student government.
I wasn't in anything.
I played 2 varsity sports in high school.
I was on the robotics team.
Wasn't in anything.
I played 3 varsity sports.
I did club fencing and I was part of the music program.
A lot of performing arts.
Yeah, I did performing arts, soccer, and NHS.
So do you think your either activity in those organizations in high school or lack thereof, do you think that influenced how active you are at Stevens as far as extracurriculars?
I know my lack motivated me to actually do more things at Stevens, so mostly because I wanted to actually get myself out there.
Awesome. So do you say that there's like a particular personality type that tends to enjoy extracurricular activities more than others? And if you do, if you could elaborate on what that person might look like to you, like just hypothetical person.
I think it's more dependent on the activity itself. Those draw in different crowds.
Yeah, be careful because that's like a stereotypical question. Like I feel like that you can get into stereotypes with that type of question. So I feel like did you ask if there is a certain type of personality?
Well, like, do you think that like yeah? Do you think there is? And if you don't, like, that's fine too.
No.
Okay. So disregarding the Stevens ratio, would you say that gender plays a role in whether or not a person is likely to join an extracurricular activity? No.
I mean, just contrary to that, I'm on the swim team, and like I only have that team, and I joined a sorority because I sort of got tired of the same people. So like, I wanted more girlfriends. Like currently my only friend is Allison, that's a girl. So then like it sort of expanded that, especially like with the ratio. I know they said not to think about that, but
to kind of go off of what Noah said, do you guys have any idea of what factors you think might kind of make you want to join a curricular activity or might make someone more, motivated to join one?
You might not know a lot of people in your major beyond just going to class, but you don't really get a lot of interaction, so maybe you want to find more people that are in line, like if you were, like you really wanted to know more about computers, but I mean, you're a CS major and you're not really interacting with your peers, then you might want to join the CS club or the SciSec club.
I would say kind of contrary to that, I think a huge factor is what your friends are doing. If you have a lot of friends that are involved in a certain extracurricular or club, I think you're going to be more likely to join that because of them. Yeah,
so would anybody raise your hand if you agree with that statement, that friends participating in the club kind of affects your participation in the club.
And then keep your hand raised if you think that would be the main cause of why people might join a club.
Okay. Would you say that there's other factors such as like major that might impact like what organization you join, or like anything else?
There are like some like major specific clubs and societies that you can join to get like ahead and get connections and stuff like that. But I think that also some people will join things like that are completely different from their club. Like even if they're like biomedical or whatever, they're gonna do some kind of like creative outlet and stuff like that, so that it's kind of a lot more different than meeting people from that.
Yeah. So would you say that like a big reason for joining clubs might be that you want to meet new people that you wouldn't otherwise meet in class? Okay. So in general, raise your hand if you feel that Stevens students are actively involved with the Stevens campus like affairs and like involved with extracurriculars just in general. Would you agree with that statement? Okay. So those who raised their hand, if you could kind of elaborate, that'd be great.
I think because there's so many diverse clubs that you're interacting in some way. There might be some people, like I know the LAN is very popular, but those people, because they just like to play video games or watch other people play video games, but that doesn't mean that they're going to join like a club sport or anything, because that wouldn't be beyond their interest. But even then, they're still interacting outside of their room.
I feel like Stevens does a pretty good job of promoting clubs to begin with, and like all that diverse like hobbies and stuff like that. I feel like students can get as involved or not involved as they want to. It's totally up to them. I feel like because there's if you're interested in something, there's probably a club that involves it. So like, you know, you just have to take action to go join it or not, and that's totally up to you. So.
Anyone else? Anything to add? So, those who didn't raise their hand, why do you feel like Stevens students aren't active in campus affairs?
I feel like the big thing is that many people don't live on campus, so it's like kind of to make the trek like up the hill and stuff to go to things when you're already like at home is a big part of that.
Yeah, I think also part of it is just like the course load and assignments and stuff. Some people think they don't have enough time for it.
Great. Please raise your hand if you've ever attended any of the activity fairs held by Stevens, which would include like the club fair or like anything similar. Okay. Do you think that had an influence on the organizations that you ended up joining or didn't end up joining?
I'd say as a freshman, because that way you actually know what's there.
Yeah.
Other than, I feel like as you move up through Stevens, you already know what exists, and you're probably not going to go to a club fair and be like, oh, let me see what's new on campus.
So would you say that it's easier for a freshman to join a student organization than it is for like an upperclassman?
Not that, but I feel like a freshman gets that first wave of exposure because they see every single club, and then if you stay here for like 3 years, you're like, oh, you may have heard clubs from friends, and it might not really be interesting joining a club or going to a club fair like this far into their academic career.
As a freshman, I agree with that because it was just like I had I don't know, it was just like, oh, club fair is today, why not go to it? It's right there.
And those who have been to the club fair, do you feel like the club fair was like an effective tool to like understand what was available at Stevens?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay. Can you raise your hand if the activities available at Stevens were a deciding factor when considering which undergraduate college to attend? No one? Okay. So, do any of you participate in activities outside of Stevens? If you could mention what those activities are, that'd be awesome.
Again, more of a collection of religious organizations.
Anyone else who raised their hand?
Playing music.
Okay.
Yeah, going to the skate park, snowboarding.
So if Stevens offered a similar program, do you feel like you would attend the activity at Stevens?
Like if they had like a club for playing music.
Yeah.
Probably not, honestly.
Probably not.
I think that'd be a little weird, frankly. To be forced into a room and be like, play music with these people. Like I like doing it on my own time, so it's like aligned with my interests in music.
That makes sense. So do you feel that Stevens, so if you don't participate in activities outside of Stevens, would you say that Stevens is doing a good job in providing like a good variety of different clubs and activities?
I think they're okay. I think that it's hard for new clubs to get started though. I've had like a lot of friends try to start clubs and there's just not enough publicity to like really like launch them. Even though there has been interest for them because they send out interest forms beforehand. So I think it's like totally okay. That also goes back to like, do you think the club fair offers like a good amount of like things? I think that's solidly okay because they do not allow certain clubs under their SGA standard of like, if you're not like a goal, I think there's like levels, and if they're not a certain level, they're not allowed to be there. So like then you're sort of like screwed over for the next year about getting like members, because that's where people draw the most members. And I think also, sorry, going back to the other thing you said about if people are involved in like extracurricular, I think like it really depends, because like you said, your definition is only stuff that does include varsity sports, and I know that you're on a softball team. Yeah, and like swim team, softball takes up like 20 hours of your week, so like you really don't have time to like do an extracurricular by that definition, which is why I haven't really said.
Is there a reason you're excluding varsity sports? Just a quick question.
It's just that's just where just part of our we're looking at the just not including varsity sports. We are including.
Okay. So part of the focus group is the reason why we're excluding it is because a lot of people who come to Stevens, that's kind of like preemptive that like you started it before college. So we're trying to eliminate that variable. That's why.
But we are including like Greek life and things like that. If that's we're into Greek life.
Yeah, I mean, there's like other clubs that I think I would definitely want to be involved in, but I just don't have time. I'm sure you have other clubs that you're definitely like in your freshman fencing. That like, yeah, I just see you guys around. That like, we want to be involved in, but we just don't have the time. I know softball has like 5 a.m.s, like that's ridiculous, and like I know we have close to 20-25 hours a week to swimming, so it's like there's just like you have 20 hours for that, 20 hours for homework and class. It's 40 hours a week, full-time job. Where else are you gonna put that other time?
Yeah, that's a great point.
And also, like, there are a lot of, I think like the diversity of clubs is good, but their meeting times are not too great, because there are a lot of clubs that I signed up for and wanted to attend, but couldn't because they all met like on Tuesday at 9. And so I kind of had to like pick and choose which ones I wanted to go to.
Has anyone, raise your hand if you've kind of experienced something similar, where like multiple clubs you've been interested in have met at the same time?
I think that's happened more with the kind of dissolution of the activity periods that we used to have.
Like academic break?
Yeah.
Yeah, raise your hand if I guess you'd agree with that statement, that the lack thereof of academic breaks has impacted your participation in clubs. Okay. So to finish, just a quick, just raise your hand if you agree with any of these statements. Would you say that you're aware of many of the Stevens clubs that are offered? Okay. And raise your hand if you feel like you're too late to to join a club? Like you've kind of been here too long. Okay. What makes you feel like that?
And when you're a freshman, you're eager. You're like excited to be here and stuff. And then when you get older, your classes get harder, and like you just have like you're already committed to like 1,000 other things, and like your hobbies on your own time. Like I'm not trying to be involved. Like my entire life is involved in Stevens. Like
Yeah.
So like when you're a freshman, it's exciting, but after that, it's just like you're involved what you're involved in. That's really it.
You have a lot to look forward to.
I got scenic design. Why would they join a new club?
Sorry.
And raise your hand if you would consider joining a new extracurricular activity in the future.
That's interesting,
What do you think would be factors for you joining this theoretical future activity? Do you think like having it fit in your schedule is like, what do you think is the biggest thing, like the biggest impact on if you want to, like from like say tomorrow if there's like a meeting for something, like what would make you want to go?
Just two things for me would be it's got to fit my schedule and it's got to be something I'm really passionate about.
For me, it would be schedule and then having like people I know there, or like people I'm willing to go out for.
Yeah, I know I said no joining club, but if I was gonna join one, I prefer it that doesn't have like 5 people in it.
So you want like a higher membership?
Yeah, higher membership would be nice because then I feel like, oh, we can't do anything. We have no money, no people, 0 energy. Why am I here?
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Raise your hand if you think that funding is really important as to which clubs you've joined and which clubs you've continued to be a part of at Stevens. If anyone want to elaborate on that, that'd be great.
Well, like I was saying earlier, like I was part of this urban agriculture club. It was basically about like urban design and greenhouse and like going green and Stevens, which I know a lot of people are about, but like they just didn't get the like okay from the SGA, and like they weren't able to like move ahead because they weren't allowed to go to certain things because they didn't have a certain number of membership. And like every time we tried to get more people to go, it was just like fought with, like there was just like a lot, I wouldn't say fought with, but there was a lot of like dispute between like the SGA and like the actual clubs. I think a lot of it has to do with like the stricter rules that the SGA has on clubs and new clubs and how to like get those to the different stages.
Okay, and then just one more like question. Just like where do you live? Like do you live off campus? Do you commute? Do you live on campus? If any, we could go around the circle.
Off campus.
Off campus.
On campus.
Off campus.
Off campus.
Off campus.
Fraternity housing.
Off campus. On campus.
And would you say that your location, like where you live, has had an impact on what clubs you've been willing to join?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Actually, for you, I saw you shaking your head. Why?
No, because I live in Hoboken. I'm at close. I just don't live on campus.
About how far away would you say you live? Like, are you like a block or 2 away, or are you
Yeah, I'm like 2 blocks away.
10 minutes away? Okay. How about everyone else? Are you like?
Yeah,
Like an 8-minute walk.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time. This has been really eye-opening. Thank you.
Does anyone have, before we
Anyone-
close, does
yeah.
anyone else have any other feedback that might help us do our research?
Are you gonna send out like a questionnaire?
We might.
Might.
If you include a questionnaire, maybe like specify why you're not including varsity sports, because I know that a lot of people at Stevens think that varsity sports is part of like extracurricular because it is so much of our time here, and it's a big investment. So.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.